Super Mario Bros. Deluxe was released on the Game Boy Color back in 1999. Surprisingly, this game wasn't released in Japan for almost a year later, which really doesn't make all that much sense. It is based on the original Super Mario Bros., but includes a save feature. It also includes a world map, which shows Mario traveling between each stage. There's also a number of other features, including the lost levels, but I won't be covering that in this review because I didn't get to it. Sorry guys. Basically, you play as Mario, and you go from castle to castle fighting Bowser and his minions while trying to find and save the princess. Every fourth stage is a castle level where you must defeat Bowser. Normally, you die if you get touched by enemies or the projectiles, but if you find a hidden mushroom, you grow twice the size, and if you get damaged, you will shrink in size, but won't have to start over at the beginning of the level as you normally would. Additionally, if you already are double size and you find a mushroom block, you will get a flower, and with this flower power, you get the ability to shoot fireballs, which will defeat enemies very easily. There's also a superstar power-up, which makes Mario invincible for a short amount of time, allowing you to run through multiple enemies without taking any damage whatsoever. There's quite a variety of enemies in this game. There's Goomba and Koopa Troopers, which are the most common enemies, and then there's more difficult enemies like Bullet Bills, the Hammer Brothers, and the super annoying Cloud Guy, which throws spiky turtles at you and is super annoying. And a bunch of other smaller enemies, but those are the main ones. There is quite a nice variety in levels. Each level is pretty unique. Some stages are underground, some are on giant mushrooms, some in castles, some at night, some underwater, and there's even one or two strange inverted stages, which I sort of liked. It's a little different. Now I'll go on to the downsides that I experienced. I played this for an hour and a half. That's how long it took me to get through all the stages from start to finish. And I ran into quite a few problems that are not really mentioned nowadays. Nowadays, people are really nostalgic about this game, and they pretty much give it 10 out of 10. It's the best. There's no problems with it. But there was quite a few problems, at least from what I've seen. Even though, take that with a grain of salt, this game was released in 1985, so of course there's going to be problems. It's a pretty old game. Okay, so for starters, let's see. It's kind of strange that there's 8 castles with 8 Bowser like boss battles, and in each castle you find Toad, which says the princess is not in this castle, try the next one, blah 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 blah, and it's the same exact cutscene every 4 levels, and it's kind of monotonous to see the same thing happen. I don't know why Toad is even in the castle to begin with. I don't know why Bowser is hopping between each castle, but that's a trivial little thing. Next off, the boss battles themselves against Bowser are extremely easy. All you have to do is run under Bowser, hit the switch, and then the floor drops Bowser and you win. Usually it takes about 3 seconds to finish the boss battle, which is entirely too short. Even later on in the game, there's a slight difference where Bowser starts throwing axes, I think, but they can't even really hit you. You just do the same exact motion, you just run under Bowser and then you win instantly. So I thought the boss battles were kind of lame. I know this is an old game, but still they're kind of lame and kind of repetitive. Next off, the hit detection wasn't that great. I mean, it was pretty good, especially for a game in 1985 on the NES, but there's some moments where I didn't really get hit, but you know, the hit detection isn't that great, especially against the Hammer Brothers. The hammer would come after you, and you would see that you didn't get hit. It would come close, but you didn't get hit, and then you just drop dead. So that kind of sucked. And there was other times where an enemy would be on like a floor above you, and if you get too close, you just die, even though it doesn't really touch you. I don't know. Kind of trivial again. The next problem is the screen size. It was often very difficult to see where enemies are and where the floor was or where the holes were. So sometimes an enemy would be like flying out of the sky, and you wouldn't be able to even know it's coming out of the sky until it's too late. And another problem with that is if you got hit by an enemy in midair, your character would freeze and drop straight down. If you had the power up, you would just freeze in midair, drop straight down, and die, and you'd have to start all over. Some stages near the end were also extremely difficult, and sometimes relied more on luck than anything else. The hammer guys were especially frustrating on the second to last mission. One of the biggest issues I had, though, is on the last stage. There's this one part where there doesn't seem to be any possible solution, and it just repeats itself over and over and over again, and I could not figure this out for the life of me, so I had to look up a guide to see what I was doing wrong. You know, I couldn't figure it out. And turns out there's a hidden block that you would never be able to know existed unless you looked up a guide or got extremely lucky by just jumping around randomly. And I don't know, it's kinda frustrating that Nintendo would put a hidden block as a way to progress in the level, especially when you're so close to the end of the game. Back in the 80s and 90s, there wasn't the internet. I mean, there was, sort of, but most people didn't have access to it. And unless you had a strategy guide, there was no way that a kid would be able to figure this out. Maybe if they got lucky, but again, I'm sure a lot of kids back then probably got frustrated and just stopped playing the game and never completed it. And that's pretty much all the minor issues I had with the game. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad game. I'm just pointing out some of the flaws that I thought could have been improved, possibly. But overall, it's a great game. I would definitely recommend this to any person, any younger generation who hasn't played this before. It's a great classic. It's a great part of gaming history, and it's pretty fun. It's not very long. It took me an hour and a half, like I said, to complete the whole game, and it was pretty enjoyable. I'm not gonna lie. The controls are pretty solid. Everything's pretty good. There's also some bonus features in the game. I'm only going to point out one, which is the Boo race, and I really enjoyed this. You're racing the ghost Boo through a little stage, and he's creating obstacles, and you have to get by him while at the same time trying to race him to the finish. That's actually pretty fun, and it has a pretty good soundtrack as well. So overall, I'm going to rate this game a 4 out of 5. I don't think it's perfect like some people may think. It's not a perfect game, but it's definitely pretty good, especially playing it now in 2015. There's a lot of other good games out, but I personally think it's good enough to get a 4 out of 5. And if you've watched this all the way through to this point, I'm going to go ahead and play the ending, the last level. So if you don't want to see the ending, go ahead and pause the video now. But it's kind of nice for people who don't feel like playing the game to see the ending. I thought the ending was pretty nice. You actually get a medal, which is pretty awesome. So anyway, if you like this review, please post some comments. Tell me how it was. Tell me how I can improve. And until next time, see you later.